Hi guys, Freddy here. Welcome back to another modern RPG. And this time I would like to present this, Dead Air Seasons. You see, I've been seeing adverts for this on Facebook and on YouTube, and it looks pretty darn great, especially given the setting. The setting for Dead Air Seasons is a post-apocalyptic future, but one caused by environmental collapse. People ignored the environment and it struck back and it's destroyed civilization. Now, if you've watched my house rules videos, you'll know that that was kind of one of the settings I came up with that I was thinking about using for the game that we're putting together. So this really caught my eye. So I've downloaded the Quick Start, I've had a look through it, and there's a bunch of stuff in here I really like. There's also a bunch of stuff I don't like, but there's a bunch of stuff that I really like. So let's have a look through. First of all, absolutely lovely cover. I have to say, the artwork throughout this is great. I really love the presentation. The sort of bright pastel colours with the white pages really work. But we'll continue through. Quick Start version 1. Now, this is an Italian game that's being translated into English. So perhaps the problems I've got with it are due down to translation and will be knocked out as we go through various versions up until the release. But there are a few little problems. Now, carrying on through, as I said, the artwork looks great. The white text on the lovely painted background, absolutely great. Splashes of colour against the white pages. Really 10 out of 10 for design. This looks gorgeous. Carry on, Dead Air Seasons. This preview is an introduction to the world of Dead Air Seasons, a post-apocalyptic game inspired by works such as The Last of Us series, Girl with All the Gifts, Contagion, Nausicaä Valley of the Wind, and other classics of the genre. Our ecosystem was dying. All of humanity's hope lay in Panacea, a scientific miracle that would repair the damage caused by centuries of hubris and neglect. Within a few short years, that wonderful little bacterium, which was designed to feed on pollutants we'd so carelessly dumped, was able to restore balance between human and nature. The air was finally clean again, the lands fertile, the forests flourishing. Perhaps it was the sheer bulk of pollution to ingest, perhaps it was a flaw in the design of Panacea itself. Whatever the cause, humanity only had the slightest flight of hope before careening to the brink of destruction. Panacea, created by our saviour, had become the Blight, and nature was devouring all as it reclaimed the lands it had lost. So, that's what it is. Worlds become polluted, humanity creates a bacteria to eat the pollution, and that corrupts the earth. Basically, it infects people, and everybody is slowly becoming basically zombies. So it's very Last of Us. It very is heavily based on that. One of the things I really like about it is Dead Air Seasons core rulebook. You've got the story of the Blight, the overview of the world, complete rules of Monad Echo, a streamlined game system, rules of creating the game region, rules for creating the community and the characters. Because part of the game is the community that you're building. So as you build the community, story factors come in as you achieve things, and that backs you up and you can write that in. So it's based around these things called crisis. So your community will face a crisis. So a rival tribe will attack your fields and steal all your grain. And the players will have to deal with that. And depending on the results of it, the success of it, you'll be able to write something in to your tribe. So perhaps when you raid the other tribe, you find a cache of arms. And your tribe will have that. And that will become one of the things for your characters where you can use it. Oh, we're getting ready to go. Well, I want a weapon and we've got this cache of arms. Or you've got extra people. Now, I'm guessing at some of this because in the Quick Start rules, obviously, that side of things barely covered at all. But it really does seem interesting that instead of it being simple things that you buy, it is story factors that you can write in. And that's very much the way the system works, with you getting benefits, what they call descriptors. So your community will gain descriptors and your characters will gain descriptors as time goes on. And you can use those to succeed in tasks. I'll cover this in a bit more detail in the rules breakdown, which will come out on Friday. Carrying on through, we've got an overview. So it talks the narrative RPG side of things. The characters are part of a community which must fight to survive in complex conditions. The passage of time, seasons, determines moments of change, crisis for the whole community. Choices made by the players in those moments of crisis have a concrete effect on the world, on the community, on the advance of the Blight itself. Equipment and weapons only serve to support the narrative. So it's not a game where you get a bigger gun. It will only really matter if you have a gun and the narrative points of that you can use it in combat if you have the descriptors which say you're good with guns. So, themes of the Dead Air seasons. It talks about stories of people, a world that's changed forever. Nature demands a tribute. Again, lovely, lovely artwork. A bit of background story, description of the world, the description of what communities are, what crises are, the seasons of the Blight, guidelines, how to get started. It's got one of my pet hates here, that it's not a games master, it's a master of the Blight. Get over yourself, you're just a games master. Role of the Master of the Blight, scenes, anatomy of a survivor. So we go through the attributes. We go through descriptors, because you have descriptors rather than skills. So you don't have a gun skill at level 20, you have a descriptor which says you're good with guns. You've got gifts, which are more specified abilities. You've got Soma, which is your inner strength you can draw on, but only if you are using a descriptor. So it's only if your character is kind of based around that thing. If you're good with guns and you're in a combat, then you can call on your Soma to help you in combat. But if you don't have a descriptor which says you're good with guns, you can't use that in that way. Your descriptors might be for something completely different. You're a good driver, you're good with knives, etc., etc. You got your wounds. Everybody basically has 3 health levels, and you describe your wounds based on what's happened and how they will penalize you. You got your bonds. You've got opponents and threats. Then we've got the 2 checks. One of the interesting things about the game is that the Games Master never rolls dice. If the players are doing something, then he gives them a challenge level. Likewise, if they are defending against something, he gives them a challenge level. It's the players which are always rolling the dice. A really interesting idea that the Games Master just setting the difficulty of things. He's not actually taking part in the challenge against them. He's just setting how hard the world is. One of the other interesting things is basically you can roll as many dice as you want, but anytime you roll a 1 on a d6, it's a fail. So if you want to roll 6d6, you pretty much got a 100% chance of rolling a 1. So you can try anything, but you've got a much larger chance of failure. Talks through what the Master of the Blight does in any challenge, what the character does, and what they've got to increase their dice pool or successes, how to get additional successes needed, how to find out the level of success. You can have an outcome with a cost, you can have a standard outcome, or you can have an outcome with an increment. Assigning opposition levels, so a guide to the Master of the Blight, talking through how many dice should you roll, costs, increments, what happens if you suffer wounds, contamination and awakening, as the Blight takes hold in your body, as you get wounded, especially in more infectious areas where the Blight has taken hold. Any wound can affect you more, and you will stand a chance of becoming one of these zombies, basically. I'm trying to see if I can see the name they're called. The Awakened. So if the spore count within your body from the Blight gets to a certain level, you become an Awakened. Talking about how to manage what information the players have access to. And then we've got a sample scenario, the railway. And it gets people straight into the action. About 8 months ago, the company that made this have actually done this scenario through a playtest, and you can see how the rules work. That's how some of it I figured out for the rules breakdown. But we go through the adventure structure, different scenes with the adventure. It's all very descriptive. There's not really any maps or anything. As you take your community through a crisis. That occupies most of it. You know, what happens if the players go to the fire station, the epilogue, etc. And then we're on to some pre-generated characters. Now, I find this a little odd that we've got the characters here. So we've got their background, their sort of story here, their different abilities. You know, I studied some medicine, but I only practiced on animals. Their gifts, through all that, their bonds with the different characters, and then their stats. But then again, we go through all the characters, and then we come to the character sheets, which is all the same information, just presented in a different format. So we've got the attributes laid out much more tidily with the Soma and PNR up there. We've got their descriptors, we've got their gifts laid out, and the character background. It's all there, just laid out much nicer. I don't understand why they needed it twice. One of the elements I said which could be a translation problem is I spent quite a while looking for what the descriptors were, and it's these sections in italics. Because nothing indicates that's the descriptor. As I said, you use that to be allowed to use your Soma to buy up your tests. So you're adding that to your attribute to be more successful. But nothing told me that's what it was. It wasn't until I went back into some of the NPCs in the adventure. If I can find one of the monsters. Armed pursuers. It's got their description. Then it's got their descriptor. We are a tough group of survivors with a good knowledge of the area. And it was only through that I figured out that it was these areas in italics which were the descriptors. It would have been nice to have been told. But that's the end of the book. It finishes off with the character sheets. Now, there's a lot in here I like. I really like the community building stuff. The fact that what you're doing is directly influencing the community, and the community is directly influencing you in what equipment you've got available, in giving you these extra descriptors you can use during your adventures because you've got the backing of your community. What I don't like is the problems with the layout. The rules aren't that well detailed, and I would like to know so much more. But for a quick start, it's quite nice. I'd be interested to see how other people play through it who aren't familiar with the rules. Obviously, the game's creators, when they did it on their YouTube channel, they've created the game, so they know exactly how everything works. For somebody who's coming to the game, I'd be interested to see how they run it. But it's a very nice looking quick start. I'm intrigued to see how the game goes. I believe it's fully backed already. But I'll put a link to the, it's not a Kickstarter, it's a backer kit. I'll put that in the notes down below. So check it out. It's a very interesting thing. Anyway, I've wittered on for ages as usual. So thank you very, very much for watching. But as always, most of all, you look after yourselves. And I'll catch you later. Bye now.